Well, my answer to that would be spinning the answer I gave a few minutes ago about, or the comment I made. I really believe that his basic insight was, if we can revalorize this project, if we can bring dignity and respect back to the psychedelic project and all its manifestations that are rolling around, and there's everything from Time Wave Zero, 2012, Benji, look into the politics of it. It's got a lot of stuff about convivial politics and how to live among each other. There's a wide range of stuff that's being represented today in places like Reality Sandwich and Evolver Spore groups that are threads that were developed out of that vision. But I really believe Terrence's commitment was to bring it back to life, to bring the psychedelic thing back into public discussion at great personal risk and cost, and to show people that, hey, I'm just one guy talking about psychedelics. This room is full of people that could be talking about psychedelics. And if you're a nurse, you should be able to talk about them. If you're a psychiatrist, if you're a gardener, if you're a home builder. And all of these people had visions that were enhanced, perhaps even catalyzed initially, by psychedelia. Now, a lot of people are, and myself included, the book readers amongst the McKenna thing, there's all sorts of ideas in his books that I think are critical, fundamentally challenging visions of how evolution occurred, how the species has managed its relationship with plants. But all of those are basically kind of their fill for this more important germ of an idea that somebody had to pick up that light and stand in the dark with it. And he went and did that. He did a lot of stuff that I don't approve of. He did or some things I don't approve of. He wasn't always a saint. He was literally a rogue intellectual trying to figure it out on the road. And he didn't have any models. He was doing it, shooting from the hip constantly. Every day he would talk about the same facts in a slightly different way. So it was, to me, it was more just that he wanted to inspire a genuine discussion so that we could apply this incredible gift that the planet provides with us, of all these plants that provide substances that allow us to tune ourselves to other realities and other information, greater mysteries, greater beauty, that are right at our fingertips, and we're at a crisis in our species that everyone agrees to, yet we're still leaving these incredible blessings out of our toolkit. Mm-hmm. You know, we're not off the banquet table. It's not just about the Epicurean thing of experiencing rare and beautiful universe nuance to the cellular, the botanical, the ecological. It's incredibly delectable to experience those things, but it was also important to inspire all these people from all these different kinds of backgrounds to see the vision as part of their own daily life and part of problem solving.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question, Ken. Can somebody have a psychedelic consciousness or a psychedelic lifestyle without doing entheogens, without taking psychedelics?
I think so. I use a pretty loose definition of this stuff. I myself had very intense visionary experiences before I took psychedelics, and I know from reading a lot about the pioneers of psychedelics that was true of a great many of them. And I think part of the motivation was to be able to have these experiences somewhat under your control, so that you would be the one saying, well, today I'm going to take some substance, I'm going to engage some plant that's going to allow me to explore these strange, atypical realms that have been happening without my instigation. So I think a lot of the early researchers were people that were naturally having mystical experiences, visionary experiences. Some of them were having, tantric sex was bringing people into these realms that were very beautiful and complex. But you had to have somebody there to do it, and you had to have discipline, and you had to do it over a length of time that lets you fine-tune your body. Mm-hmm. So psychedelics suddenly kind of jumped into that and changed all those ratios in a very important way. You know, something you said earlier about the and I was trying to imply that myself, that the capitalist system just sucks up culture and uses it to make money, and we all need money, but there's been all this, commodification of other people's ideas and things like that is always happening. But I recently reread a book called What the Dormouse Said about the relationship between LSD and the defense industry, and how when LSD was first coming out in the 50s, all these people were working in the Bay Area, at Stanford and other places, were heavily involved in doing LSD while they were also working for the Defense Department. And there was a lot of tension over it, especially because of Vietnam coming around the corner. All those militarist sentiments were pretty high pitch. So there's always had to be a give and take in that kind of process, and you just have to engage at some level and still feel that the work has more importance than using it in a Coca-Cola commercial, which certainly has been happening and will always happen. So I think we have to take history where it is. It's not going to be history the way I like it. It's where it is. And you work with those tools, and that's one of the key things I think Terrence was really ingenious about, was like he understood the value of the approaching millennium. He understood that it would raise everyone's anticipations of apocalyptic opportunities, and he tried to leverage those. He tried to see the world as being a changeable place. If you get people's attention focused on the things that are important, we have a much better chance of creating a sustainable planet and living with love and happiness in our lives.
I think that he was in overdrive, during that period, where from Alien Dreamtime until, unfortunately, he got sick. I mean, it really felt like he was a man with a mission.
Oh, yeah, there was no question. No, that was it. And, like other men with missions, it took a huge burden on him, on his health, on his family, on his personal life. It's something we should all give these guys a warning. When anyone starts becoming famous, it should say celebrity at your own risk.
Right.
Because it's really, people don't understand the pressure that's on all these individuals that go in front of the public and advocate things that are still essentially illegal. It piles up in millions of ways that people don't understand, and everyone should pray for those guys and those women that are out there taking that kind of risk, and offer them whatever loving support and light they can bring to the story, because it's a little more harrowing than it looks from the magazine covers.
Yeah, and especially in the light of our current political situation, where I guess it was about a week and a half ago, where the Obama administration, courtesy of Eric Holder, just all of a sudden decided that marijuana was like heroin. It had no medicinal value at all. And so in the light of this film that you have coming out, which celebrates sort of the life and the work of a man, and a media that emerged around him, courtesy of people like you, here we're going backwards in times. We're going back to the Stamp Tax Act, which essentially made all these substances illegal. And I think it's actually kind of ironic.
It's ironic, and it's disappointing, and it fits in that great big old box full of stuff that we call disappointment about the Obama administration. Yes, I'd rather have Mr. Obama making those corporate decisions than Mr. Bush, but they're still both corporatists. They're international corporatists. They're not working to make things fair. They're working to make things profitable for their clients, who are the people that put them in office with their money. Right. That's the simple situation, and I don't expect it to change unless some third-party guy comes up and does it just for fun. Let's say Bill Gates decides to just buy the presidency and try to apply some fairness principles. That would be revolutionary.
Well,
but I don't trust any leaders to do that. I don't believe in waiting on leaders to take action or to get permission. People need to be responsible for their own decisions.
So I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I'm going to go off-road here just for a little bit. And I'm going to ask you a question that you may not be aware that I'm about to ask you, but Stephen told me, because I think it's an interesting story, and I hope you could share it with the folks. Stephen told me a story about when you were doing more straight media down in Austin, and you had this experience where you were writing something about maybe a Lincoln, or I'm not sure quite what it was, but somehow what you were working on, maybe you were working with George Bush's brother or something like that, and what you were working on somehow got back to Bush and wound up in one of his speeches. Am I getting this story right?
You're getting some of it right. Now I'm going to have to give some context for it, and I'm a little, you're right, it's off the road. So when I was living in Austin for a while, I worked for a company that was owned by the Bush family that was set up to create educational software. And I did it with my eyes open. Let's just leave it there. And during that time, I had the opportunity to get on to provide President Bush with some suggestions of looking at the Gettysburg Address as a model for how to address the crisis after 9/11. And I know that it was used in a prominent speech that he delivered that I don't want to talk about and I don't want to go into more details about. But yeah, I was working for the family, and while I was there, I did everything I could to infuse the work process and the people I worked with, and I worked very closely with Neil Bush, with this sense of both responsibility and a collective love. And I personally believe that every human has a divine spark within them that's based on conscience, compassion, mercy, pleasure, desire. And I think that spark of humanity inside every person is worth looking for. And I think you'd have to look into some pretty dark shadows to find that spark in some of these people, undoubtedly. But I think it's our responsibility to approach every person that way. And even when things go bad, and even when things are fucked up, part of this mercy and compassion that we're evolving toward is built on oceans of forgiveness, oceans of reconciliation, and understanding. And if you were in front of one of these powerful families for very long, it changes the way you look at how that all comes about. I mean, they're just as much in a cage as anybody else is.
Right.
More so, far, far more so. Like William Burroughs wrote a beautiful essay in Crawdaddy magazine in the 70s that was called Why I'm Running for Dog Catcher. And he said the only job that's worth having in government is dog catcher because nobody gives a fuck what you're doing. The worst job is being president.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then he goes into how do you police the police? How does a leader of a corrupt system police his own corrupt system? Well, it gets out of control pretty quick.
Right.
It is out of control. That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
And, you understand that these are humans that are not given any kind of, they don't have an opportunity for what we would consider a real life. They are shuffled around and moved around like pieces of, they're pawns on a chessboard, literally. They're used. And they appear to have power, but not really. They're just a vehicle for power. They're the employees and consultants of much more powerful forces than any one family or one team of evil political strategists. They're just consultants.
Right. And a lot of them, too, based on my investigative work in looking under the rocks, a lot of them are traumatized from a very early age. And their personalities are split and cracked and compartmentalized. And, by the time they reach adulthood, they're not even real people at various stages of their evolution. They're really programs. I hate to say that, but I mean that's kind of what I've discerned throughout all of this.